A very warm welcome to Mind Community. I'm Sherwood McCassie. As always, I'm pleased that you have joined us. A few weeks ago, we started a journey in the parish of St. Andrew. On that journey, Major Boyce detailed aspects of the parish's geographical features. We received several calls for him to return with a second program. Well, the Major responded positively. He is back with a look at the natural features of the parish and efforts to restore an aspect of the parish's built heritage.
Before pre-Columbus society, there might have been rivers. And I can tell you why. Because the rivers carve out this area. And if you look carefully, you'll notice that Belle Plaine is on a flat area, but it has terraces. So take, for example, the Allen School. If you go to the Allen School and you strike the ball over the plain area, then it goes down into another flat area. And that flat area corresponds with that hill over there, but that's not a hill. That's part of the sand dune. That's a sand dune. You see, generally a sand dune has a long slope, gentle slope, and the vegetation will stop the progress at the crest, which is the highest point of it, and then it falls down. And it has two horns too, pointing in the direction from which the wind is coming. And if you go by the church, you will see those two horns. The sand was just covered with, as you would expect, with a secondary growth. Actually, might be put there by the water earlier or by the animals. Now, I also noticed that the shale that they're carrying to making the cement from, I noticed that they are pushing a little further east. It started at Greenland, but it's pushing east. And I noticed that that soil is black, just like the one in Belle Plaine. I think the only difference there with that is that's compressed. Probably had more weight on it, for example. This one in Belle Plaine, especially if you go there or the Allen School or by the house in here right in front of you, you'll notice that if you dig a couple feet down, you have round rocks and smelly too. Yes, has a funny smell. And that could only happen if that area was under water. Right? So as the water, and we have an example of a house that was just built there. They couldn't even find a hard spot there. So they have to do that. But that soil, that shale that they're using, and as well as this area, has now turned St. Andrew ugly. That's the truth. They dig in, they leave in scars. And you can see, when you come down Greenland, for example, you can see a scar. I don't know if they plan or if the government, whoever is concerned, is going to reforest that area, because there was some before. So once you remove it, you have to reforestation. You have to try reforestation programs to get that, to change the look of those scars that are over there. This means that we in St. Andrew should be encouraged to put some effort into getting the ecotourism going. And it would all tie in with the plans that the minister have for these rural areas, this nature-based tourism. Example, you can carry the tourists to the pond, maybe for 2-3 hours. And then they can have a walk back, mingle with the tourists, and then there are a satellite of shops around this area, Belle Plaine being the most densely populated area in St. Andrew, as well as Sand Dune Restaurant and Santosha. So you have a good way to push this island by the ecotourism. They can also go from here to the tourists. They can use the river as for hiking. They can be dropped closer to, for the ones who are not that strong, not the able-bodied ones, they can drop close to any area, and then they can walk and experience the vegetation as well as mingle with the locals.
As it relates to experiencing the vegetation, there is a spot deep in the heart of St. Andrew amongst the rugged terrain. There you will find yet another interesting nature reserve, home to a selection of flora and fauna, a beautiful woodland forming an arch-shaped ridge.
I'm going to speak about Turner Saltwood, an area that has been forgotten for a very long time. Remember I said earlier that there might have been large rivers before the pre-Columbian society came. This society's population was very small, so that it did not affect the area too much. In other words, they did not have to cut down all of the trees. It's only when the Europeans came in that those trees were removed. Therefore, the Turner Saltwood, along with small portion there in Foster Hall Woods, as well as the deep gullies in Chalky Mount and elsewhere, those are the only forests from that era that is left behind. The Turner Saltwood has over 100 species of flowering plants, making it the most species-rich site on the island. Nearly all the plants are endemic. And I can't understand why people who are engaged or who are working on the botanical garden cannot go to this area and propagate some of those plants. Because sooner or later, we may lose Turner Salt. Remember, Turner Salt is on our brow, and it is also suffering from heavy rainfalls, and therefore erosion is occurring at those areas. So some of those trees are fairly tall too, and when they collapse, they take the roots out, and then the salt goes behind them. So you can see why I said earlier that some of these species should be kept. And the best place to keep them right now would be in the botanical garden. In fact, the botanical part of the botanical garden could be renamed the Genuine Forest of Barbados. It doesn't have to be too big, it could be very small, but it's important for those, our generation that is coming and who will want some information on the woods, because the woods may not be around.
This sacred treasure is significant to the preservation of the priceless commodity that is nature. A trip to Turner's Hall Woods ignites your senses as you take in the spectacular scenery and enjoy exotic plants thriving in their natural habitat. This program is concerned with communities. Yes, people make up communities. From time to time, we will stumble upon the good efforts of individuals who are working not for themselves, but on behalf of others. There's a place on this program, My Community, for such individuals. This program now celebrates the efforts of Desmond Ward.
All right, right here we are on East Coast Road, Ermenborn Highway, where as you can see we have a setup in terms of a young entrepreneur trying to make a fantastic living of nature. Coconut water, naturally. My name is Desmond Ward. Right behind me is the area where my old foreparents lived. It was, the last died in '91 and left this land here. Right in front of me here, all the hill was down in the road. Actually the sun, everything was going in the road. So what they did is I landscaped the area in terms of, you can see the whole area here. So I got the excavator, came in, a D6, bobcats, and we landscaped the whole area. And I didn't want to use no blocks. I wanted a rusted, more local Bajiana style. So I do the rocks. So I went even in the riverside and construction sites where I have, they don't construct and dig up the rocks and everything. And I harvest all the rocks. I pay trucks to bring them here. And I got a mason myself, and then we started doing skill in terms of laying the groundworks. Put some concrete to the bottom, and then we use the natural different various sizes of rocks and everything to make what you see behind me a fantastic wall. See, like different size rocks, different colors, different texture. Even this one here, I found this in the riverside. This is actually a shape of a map of Barbados. And if you look closely, you see even the St. Lucie, the St. Peter, St. Andrew have all the designs, and that's naturally from right in here, East Coast Road. If you see on here, I'm trying to just give the East Coast Road even a better facelift towards attraction. And we also, this is also on the train line, where the train used to travel years ago. I think in 1937, really, the train ended. So I just trying to make the area, because we have enough history in St. Andrew. We have a lot of historians and a lot of unsung heroes in our parish that I've been trying to highlight in terms of, even back here, we are doing the restaurant. I'm going to name it also after one of the heroes of St. Andrew, one of all four parents. So within a few months, you can see the beauty unfold on the East Coast Road.
And my community wishes Desmond Ward every success with his project as he unfolds the beauty on the East Coast Road. It is important to note that in doing so, Desmond will honor one of the parish builders. He now lists a number of them.
Some of the great grandparents here is Samuel Springer. Then you have Vivian Springer, Louis Springer. Louis Springer is actually one of the heroines of the St. Andrew. She lived right behind me. The house is now repaired and remodelished now into this restaurant. But she's one of the heroines in the district, whereas she did not have a child. She did not bear a child naturally, but she raised a whole district. From the old ones, whereas she was one of the persons in the district have a little small 30-inch black and white TV when everyone district is a have at the house. At vantage points, whereas who cannot fit in the house itself, there's a lot of every window vantage point, they're able to watch TV. And the good thing about her is that she never ran a fella. And we go back in days when they had the biscuit and the tens where they had 4-4s, and she was able to share a biscuit or 4 biscuit and some goat milk or cow milk with every single individual that in that house. And everyone don't quarrel, fight, nothing. We all live like family. We are not direct family, we are already a family of St. Andrew. And that's why we're here. That's why as soon as it's finished, this is going to name after her excellent old lady. She died in 1991. When this project is completed, you can also see I have an area designated for a booth for any young entrepreneur that want to sell grapes, fat porks, cashews, coconut water, anything that we get in St. Andrew as local, that you can come and display there, and even craft. Because we got a lot of things in St. Andrew that's craft that we can display in this area here. So I'm going to have it so many tourists, even locals that like come, they'll be able to see everything and buy locally. Even pottery that is in Chalkmount, all in St. Andrew. If history be told, you will see a part of St. Andrew is in every parish. We have clay, we have even the material that makes the cement, we have the sand, everything is in St. Andrew. So I want able to bring some St. Andrew, not only out to St. Andrew, but any St. Andrew, so that everyone can be able to see and know what St. Andrew is really, really about. Because a lot of people want to hear about St. Andrew, but not to see St. Andrew and see the quality and the products that's made from St. Andrew, jewelry, the pottery, everything going to be displayed right here on the East Coast Road. Ermin Bourne, how you doing?
A proud St. Andrew resident who is paving the way not merely for himself, but for other young entrepreneurs in the parish of St. Andrew. Next to the proposed vending area are the remnants of the bridge that supported the old train line.
There are only 2 areas, I believe, in Barbados where structures like these are still visible. One near Bath, Concord, near that area. Now what we're trying to do here is to restore this area. First off, we have to restore it, and then we have to conserve it for future generations. As you can see, it is made out, beginning to deteriorate. So what we first have to do is to patch it and then sort of put back in the lines to show that it was solid soft stone. No steel in it, and it had stood for more than 100 years with hardly any deterioration. In fact, it's only now that it has been cleared, because this was buried in vegetation. Now that it has been cleared, it's being attacked more now by the elements. It is from ground level to top is 8 feet, and it is 17 feet across. So the lines, the train lines, was on this area. The reason why you're not seeing the tracks is at the 1937, when it closed, they started to sell off the rolling stock. So all of this was sold. That's why the tracks are not here. So we're going to actually try to recreate that. And you'll notice the difference between that wall, because this is made from the river rocks. You can see all the river rocks right here, and they just have cement, they're cemented together. It was assembled in some cases in 2 different areas. So they probably went up here. What they do is build a solid foundation here again, so that this could hold this, because don't forget the trains had 3 carriages and they were very heavy, bringing lots of people from town to Belle Plaine.
Belle Plaine Passage was in the area where the train uses to turn around, leave Bridgetown, go up St. Philip, St. John, St. Joseph, down Bashburn, down Catterwash, and come East Coast. And East Coast is the last landing turn point of the train.
And first class carriage only brought the well-to-do. The second class had the middle class, so to speak. And then the third class, the third one, had the poor people. The point I'm trying to make is, in those days, it was a kind of racial too, or class, because if the train broke down, what happened is that the people, we call the poor people, the plebs, from the third carriage would have to get out and push. The ones from the second one, they will get out or got out and walk, while the ones from the first class sat down and didn't move. So you had to be pushing them as well as the train. So what has happened now, after so long, is that the elements, they're now turning to destroy the rock face itself, or the pillar itself, because the air is bringing salt and moisture. And when they hit the stones, they react with the stones, because some of the stones having iron pyrites, or you could just say iron, and they give you this brown color. But it lasted this long, over 100 years, as I said, and it will probably go on for a longer time. So our job now is not to destroy this part, because this is probably the most interesting part of the train line, but to see how we can possibly conserve it, so that people who are doing, the scientists who come after us, or those who are doing investigative work, will be able to see what it looked like. I think what might have happened too is this was made, the eggs were added to this, the white of the egg was added to this, and the egg acted as a hardener. So that's what probably is keeping it together. You see this? This is the matrix. So between here and there, and then the matrix in here, it operates the same way as cement and 2 blocks. For example, you put the matrix, the cement between the 2 blocks to hold it. But because of erosion, the matrix is breaking down, and it's left the rocks behind. And all the ones that are brown, for example, are a result of weathering.
Well, if Bridge could talk, a committee of members here in the parish are of that view. That committee believes that the bridge holds many interesting stories about social life in Barbados, especially here in Belle Plaine, and it is their responsibility to bring those stories to life again. How is the community achieving this?
Where we want to get a mural So if you find someone to sponsor a mural, it's going to be 33 feet long, and it's going to be laying right on the train line to show a replica of the old train traveling towards Belle Plaine. So we're trying to get some sponsors, some sponsors, some good Barbadian people who are willing to help invest in ecotourism in St. Andrew, so we could put a mural here to show all the tourists in here past what a beautiful sight. It's old, but it's historic, but it still stands and stands alone on itself. If you look on the ground, we see we are starting to construct it already. And hopefully within a few weeks, we should have it erected.
So we're going to actually try to recreate that. But it's going to take some money, obviously. We need sponsorship to help us with this activity. I think we're doing a pretty good job, because over there you can see this wall that was constructed. In fact, we have it look like cement, but it's actually brick. It's actually bricks that we try to maintain the same integrity of the stones that are out there. What we have done here, we're going to cut out a 24 by 18 piece from here, and inside there would go the plaque, and the plaque will give the inscription for when it started in 1831, and then it finished in 1934. We're not saying 1937 because in 1937 it was not here. The river had already taken out the pillars. So we didn't include 1937. That's when it really stopped. But for us, it stopped in 1934.
And the work of telling that story and inspiring whosoever shall visit the community has begun right here in Belle Plaine. If you wish to assist in any way, please get in touch with Major Boyce or Desmond Ward and be part of this community effort, an effort that could serve as an inspiration for all of us. More importantly, just as the bridge stood the test of times and the elements of precipitation, may the final product stand as a monument to the dedication and commitment of a number of individuals who remain community-spirited and who looked around their environment and identified the simple and made it great. Great not for themselves, but for all those who may visit their community. A fine example of community tourism spoken about ever so often by our tourism officials. Community members playing their part. There is most definitely a place for such individuals on this program, My Community. We congratulate all of them and we support their efforts. I'm Sherwood McCaskey. This has been My Community. We'll be back next week.